Good afternoon and good evening. I see many of the same faces that I saw in April when I was here to discuss the buyout program that was conducted a couple of years ago. And it's the result of that program, the funds that were unused in other counties that have created the fund for this part of the program. I'd like to just briefly go through the program. I'll only take about 15 minutes to do that, and then give you plenty of time to ask whatever questions you may have. Okay. First of all, some general things about the program. Approximately $3.6 million has been allocated for this program. This is state funding, as Dennis had pointed out, and it has all been allocated to Ulster. Unlike the first part of this program, where much of the funds were distributed amongst 11 different counties, all $3.6 million is for Ulster County, and there are certain targeted areas that we'll talk about. Can't emphasize enough, this is a state program. The eligibility criteria was established by the state. The program will be administered by Ulster County, okay, with oversight from the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. Dennis pointed out a couple of the folks that are here tonight that are on the county team. There are others. It's a rather large contingent that works on this on a regular basis. We have been working on it for a couple of months. Very important is the premise that this is based on the principle of a willing buyer and a willing seller. There's no one coming in to take over. Please let me allay any concerns about that. Some of the program guidelines. The subject property has to have experienced 2 or more incidents of seepage or flooding since April 1st of 2004. And the state has put special emphasis on seepage for this part of the program. It's important to actually go through what the definition of seepage is. And seepage is considered groundwater that's discharged to the surface or to a basement. Groundwater seepage is not the same as stormwater or surface water runoff. Okay? Stormwater or surface water is runoff that's not yet entered the ground. So this is, as you are very well aware, seepage that comes up through the ground. Another program requirement, the local building inspector and the county emergency manager must certify that the previous seepage and flood damage and the potential for future risk. Okay? You may ask, how are you going to document and prove that this problem has been going on for some time? You may have photographic evidence, but a lot of it is going to be on the honor system. Okay? We all know that you can take a picture, you can take 10 pictures on the same day. You can dummy up the date on the camera, so a lot of it is on the honor system. We are going to have to do some sort of an inspection to determine the extent of the damage, if you have cracked walls, that type of thing. The targeted area, and this is really key to this program, is within 2 miles of an aqueduct serving New York City. Additional legislative emphasis was placed on the leaking Delaware Aqueduct in Wawarsing. So that's why this particular area has been specifically targeted. Structures must be single or 2-family homes. The home must be the primary legal residence of the applicant. If the home is still habitable, the owner must occupy that home. Okay. The appraised value of the home cannot exceed $250,000, and preference will be given to homes with an appraised value of less than $150,000. The purchase price shall not exceed the value, less any insurance or disaster relief payments. In other words, if you have received an insurance payment, if you've received a FEMA claim, that money is deducted from the sale price unless you can prove that it has been reinvested in the home. And when we went through this the first time, we were very, very liberal, and any of the documentation that was provided that indicated money was reinvested in the home, we accepted it without question. There must be clear title to the home, and all liens and encumbrances must be satisfied at closing. The income cap that's been established is 150% of the area median income, and that is defined by the US Department of Housing and Urban Development. And in your packages, you will receive a chart. I can go through it if you have any questions about what the income eligibility requirements are for a family of your size. Once the program moves forward, the county must ensure that any homes that we take over will be raised, and they may be maintained in perpetuity as open space. That property can be used as recreational use, flood mitigation, or wetlands management. It can never be built on again. The county is responsible for insuring and maintaining the property after the purchase. However, the county does have the ability to sell the property, but the same caveats that I identified above are still holding. Whoever would buy the property cannot build on it. County is responsible for all costs that are associated with this program for homes that do not follow through and do not make it all the way to the end of the process. Now you're wondering, how did we come about giving out the letters that you either received or you didn't receive? You wonder why you got it or why you didn't get it. We produced a GIS map, and that's a map that would show all of the parcels that were within that 2-mile target area of the New York City aqueduct. Okay? From that, we developed a list. 625 letters were sent out to owners of residential properties. We did not send out letters to owners of vacant land or clearly commercial properties. But there are 625 parcels and 625 owners that received letters because they have a residential listing within that 2-mile target. So if you got a letter, that's why you received it. You may have no desire to participate in the program, and that's fine. There are other people that have called, why didn't I get a letter? The most direct answer is because you fall outside of that area. Okay. Interested parties must complete a rather extensive application and return some materials for verification. All of the material that we asked for will help in the evaluation process as we move forward. The materials have to be returned to my attention by the close of business on October 28th. So if you're on the fence, we would encourage you to file it. If you know absolutely, you definitely want to participate, make sure that it reaches my office by the end of the day on the 28th. Okay?
I don't think that's enough time for everybody to respond.
Okay.
I really don't.
We'll take questions afterwards. What we will have to do is verify the information in there, income eligibility, FEMA applications for National Flood Insurance Program claims, make sure that the section, block, and lot that has been listed on there is definitely within that 2-mile criteria. And then the applications will be ranked. They'll be ranked on the material and the responses to the questions that you provided. Once the applications have been ranked, we will create a list and we'll work our way from the top down. Okay? We'll begin with a manageable block of homes. For example, last time in the program we wound up spending about $200,000 per home, roughly, between the purchase price, the demolition costs, and so on. So if we have a $3.6 million program, we can figure maybe 18 homes will be eligible to participate here, and we can manage. With that, what we will do is, until we can determine that, yes, we're going to have sufficient funding, we'll start with a block of maybe a dozen. Then once we start moving our way through the process and we determine, okay, we do have enough money to move forward, we'll take another block, maybe another 3, 4, 5, and we'll keep working our way down until the money is exhausted. All that is being done with an eye to make sure that the funding goes as absolutely far as possible. After that, what we'll do is, in that first initial block of homes, we'll take a look at the appraisals and title searches for the property. We've asked you to indicate your willingness to allow an appraiser to come in and appraise the home. We're going to use a single appraiser for all of the appraisals because we want to make sure that there's consistency among the appraisal. Environmental assessments will be performed. The environmental assessments will focus on things like asbestos, lead, and mold. I know many of you have problems with mold infestation in the home. We'll have the closings, the utilities will be retired, and finally demolition will be conducted. A couple of issues from and lessons learned from the first round. Last time the state budget process really delayed our implementing the program. There's no indication that funding is going to be withdrawn. However, the county does not have the ability to pay for this program on its own. If state funding is withdrawn for whatever reason, we will not be able to continue with the program. Some individuals decided that they were going to walk away from the program because they just weren't going to receive enough money to be able to give themselves a new start. Okay, and that's a very legitimate concern, and it's reality for many people. Because of what they owed on the home, they realized that, you know, I'm only going to walk away with a few $1,000s. It's not enough to start a new life. I can tell you, you know, from what we have just seen over the past 2 months, many of those people that didn't participate are very sorry now that they didn't, because their homes had been destroyed in subsequent flooding, especially during Irene. Another lesson that we learned is that, well, we'll move on to that later. Another thing that we implemented in the first round, and again, it's to stretch the money as far as possible. Residents bore the cost of the removal of oil tanks and other remediation that was necessary. Again, the focus here was to spread the money as far as possible to acquire as many houses as possible to get as many people as possible out of harm's way. At this point in time, this is the only buyout program that's available. Dennis has mentioned that in principle, the DEP and Ulster County have come to an agreement. The county attorney's office has been working with DEP for quite some time to try to iron out an agreement. They will continue to try to work out the details of that agreement. We want to ensure that as much funding as possible is available to purchase as many homes as possible. But at this point in time, tonight, this is the only definitive funding source that's available. Another program that some people have called the question about is a FEMA-sponsored buyout program. Any FEMA buyout programs would have to be instituted through the hazard mitigation program. At the conclusion of the disaster, a number will be assigned to the total dollar value of what this has cost to New York State. FEMA will take 15% of that and point it towards hazard mitigation. Any hazard mitigation project is a competitive project, okay? And that means that any municipality throughout the state, whether they were declared for the disaster or not, is eligible to compete for that hazard mitigation money. Buyouts are not the only hazard mitigation project, okay? And hazard mitigation projects are funded at a 75-25 split. The feds pick up 75%, the remaining 25% is going to be borne by the owner, okay? For these reasons, we wanted to make sure that you are aware of the program rules, the criteria that was established by the state. We want to give you plenty of time to ask questions about that. We want you to make a decision, and a decision to submit an application based upon the program that is available today. If other programs become available, we will let you know what they are, what the criteria is for those programs, and at the end of the day, we want to make all the money that's available go as far as possible so that we can purchase as many homes, get as many people out of a bad situation as we possibly can. That's really the conclusion of the remarks about the program itself. You've received the letters, you've received the applications. I know I fielded a lot of questions about it. Maybe, you know, if we want to just start with the questions, I think I'll pick the one question that we've probably heard the most about, and that's about the proximity to the aqueduct. As I said, you got that letter because you live within the 2-mile zone that has been identified by New York State. People ask, well, I don't really know how far from the aqueduct I live. If you do know, great, put it down. If you don't hold up your application because you don't know exactly how far you are. If your section, block, and lot matches one of the ones that we identified on the map, you're within the 2-mile zone, okay? Don't delay your application for any one specific piece of information, okay? Submit it. So without further ado, I'll open it up to questions. Sorry.
Yes, sir. My name is Dennis Kelly, and I'm one of the